This is number 5 in my series about floats, and today I want to just talk generally about floats for still water fishing, and I'm talking about fishing for roach and crucians, tench and bream. Obviously you can catch fish like rudd with these same floats and perch. I'm not going to go into stuff for carp fishing. I mean, you can catch carp on a waggler and you start to get bagging wagglers and pellet wagglers and all these other things. That's outside of what I'm going to talk about. In simple terms, the floats that you want for roach fishing are slim floats without a body. Basically insert wagglers and floats like this, which has got a piece of peacock, a thinner bit of peacock, and then a 2mm cane tip. That's perfect, and you can fish. That will work in fairly shallow water. You wouldn't want to use that in particularly deep water or any range. It's not going to take a massive amount of weight. Probably about 3 or 4 BB lock-in and a few number 8s down the line, 3 or 4 number 8s down the line. Typical finesse roach fishing, you shot it right down. The number 8s will take the fine tip down until there's just a little bit showing. Show bites all day long. It's another version. This one's got a plastic tip, very fractionally thicker, just over 2mm, a little bit brighter. It's got a bit of plastic drinking straw there, peacock at the base. Both of these, well, this one in particular has got a little link swivel on the base with a wire loop to hold it there so that the float will fold better. With bodied floats, a bit like this, when you strike that, because the float's sort of going, you've got that bulk of the body to pull against. And with roach, they're more delicate biters. That tends to impede the strike a little bit. When bream take it, it's much more positive, and tench as well. Body doesn't matter so much. And of course, what a body gives you on a float, and this is a great big float for design for fishing, sort of Witham or the Welland really, or big Stillwaters, great big long piece of peacock, even thicker peacock, and then a nice big body. Might be able to tell you what it takes. 4 swan shot, I think, basically. It's much more stable. It takes a lot more weight. This takes loads of weight. This will cast a long way. You could, with the right rig, probably cast it 50 yards. And because you've got a thicker tip, you're probably going to use, whereas with the roach floats like this, you're going to be using 8s and 10s down the line. Little shot, delicate fishing. For the tench and the bream, you really want a more positive rig. So you might have a bulk down the line, and then as you drop a shot, a number 6 or a number 4, even a number 1. If you read the old books by Billy Lane and Ivan Marks, they thought nothing of using number 1 or number 4 shot. And back then, because you had the full range of lead shot, they would use number 3s or number 5s, as well as nowadays you only get the sort of 8, 6, 4, 1, but they would get 2s or 3s, the sort of in between sizes. It's all about match the shot to the float, match the float to how far you're casting, what sort of fish you're fishing for. A type of float I used over 50 years ago, based on, this is actually badged Kevin Ashurst, and it takes 3 AAA, and these were known as floats you can't catch hold of. These were known as 2mm antenna floats, and they were made, I think, by Jerry Woodcock, and they were branded with Kevin Ashurst's name and Ivan Mark's name. Very similar floats. And I made my own versions as well. This one takes, I think this one that I made probably about 1975 has got a much finer tip. I think it's these are meant to be 2mm, but by the time they're painted up, they're about 2.5mm. And this one's about 1mm because I've fined down a 2mm and shaved it right down. I had very good eyesight then. That's about, talking about when I was about 17, didn't need glasses. And I was fishing for a lot of small roach in Breach Pond, where now you still get little roach, but you get bigger ones, but they were small, so I wanted to see every bite. And a lot of people fishing against, not so much my mates, but some of the older anglers were using far cruder floats. So we were seeing bites that they weren't seeing, and we could see how to get the edge by having a fine antenna. These floats work all right. The bulk of the body tends to impede the strike. They cast a fair way because they take, say, 6 or 7 BB. You can fish them as like a little slider with a bulk going down, or you can put the bulk round the bottom of the float and it'll cast like a waggler. They're not wagglers. They're not the same, but they will catch fish. But that bulky body tends to impede the strike a little bit. I think with the little roach you were catching 50 years ago, they were so starving, they were stunted. So a big one was like this. That was a monster. And I think at one time, in the first sort of 5 years I fished at Breach, I had one roach of 9 ounces that I weighed, and the next biggest was about 4 ounces. And that's out of hundreds and hundreds of roach. And sometimes we had as many as 150, 200 roach in 5 hours. They still didn't weigh, 200 roach might go 6 pounds. They're pretty small. Sometimes they were smaller than that. I remember weighing in 65 for £1.25. It's hard work. Tiny little roach. And little tiny gudgeon as well. So this sort of floats is a relic of the past, if you like. It's a cane antenna. Bigger ones, you can use them for fishing for tench, and you see ones with all these coloured bands on and sight bobs. Personally, I think for tench, I'd use something more like this, which is a peacock waggler. It's got a hollow resolve tip with a scoop cut off, very sensitive. That will show bites all day long. You can have like a number 6 bottom shot, indicator shot, some lead down the line. They take enough. You could sort of lock this with 3 treble A and still have 2 or 3 BB down the line and some smaller shot below that. Nice sensible float, shows up well, casts very well if you do want to fish further out on the pits. I don't use bodied floats much. These floats were made for fishing on the Witham of all places. They weren't used very much, and I then used them locally on some of the pits and even on the River Froome on the tidal, on the wide bit, for fishing right across in horrible conditions. It was the river was much more open until the late 70s. A lot less moorings, and sometimes in matches there we're fishing 3/4 of the way across, even further across, to catch a few dace in not very nice conditions. They take the weight. They're perfect bream floats. You can fish at a fair old range with these, catapult out some ground bait. Just the job. A specialist version is this one. This is the same thing again. It's got a balsa body, thick bit of peacock. It's got an old canal crystal clear plastic, which has got a bit too hot because it's bent, with a scoop out of it. So this is one of my original, getting on for 40-year-old floats with the hollow tips with a scoop out, make it sensitive. But it's got a wire ring that's made very carefully with some guitar wire, and it's a slider, and it takes about 4.5 swan shot. It's not for ultra long range. A lot of the people doing they buy these Italian made slider floats and they're fishing 50 and 60 yards out with shock leaders and all the rest of it. This is for fishing up to about 20 yards out or so. It's sensitive enough. That float will show number 8 shot moving, being lifted, although I'd probably be using a 6 or a 4 or 2 number 8s bolted together. If you can find it, it is possible to make wagglers with really thick peacock quill, and they can take a lot of weight. And now you haven't got there's no body on this one, and this is sort of nearly 8mm thick peacock with a 3.5mm thick long peacock tip. I'd probably use this for tench fishing on a gravel pit, fishing well out in the winter when it's sort of a bit of tow and it's dragging on there. Ones with a black tip as well. This actually takes 3 swan and 3 number 4 shots, so it's a big old float. Getting on for about a foot long. The length of the float does matter. It's about a foot long. This one's even. I'm going to try and get it into the frame. This one's more like 15 inches. And that's just got again a peacock similar thickness tip of about 3.5mm. And that one also takes 3 swan and 5 number 4, so it's not quite as thick peacock. And floats like that have their uses, but you're not going to use it in a shallow drain. You're fishing waters like the Nene on the North Bank. God knows what it's like to fish nowadays, but in the days when you fished over into the deep water, sort of 13 foot, and you wanted the top would sometimes go a different direction to further down, you wanted to get below that top few inches, that was the sort of float that you needed on there. These sort of floats, I've actually got like a cut down rod tube for these big old wagglers and bodied wagglers. There's a right selection in there. They don't see the light of day very often, and in fact I used to keep these in my rod bag out of sight, so people didn't even know I had these secret weapons. And suddenly when the need was there, and most people were buying conventional floats, and of course you can't buy floats like this, well, not around here you can't. You could buy floats up to about 11-12 inches, and you couldn't buy these big long antennas. You've got to make them yourself out of some balsa and some peacock. I'm not going to go into detail making floats. I've done a video about making wagglers before, but some of these floats I've been showing you go back 40 and 50 years, and I learned a long time ago that if you prepare what you're going to paint and you use the right sort of paint, a lot of people nowadays use acrylic paints, and of course you get outdoor paints that are acrylics and all the rest of it. Personally, I think oil-based paints, polyurethane varnishes, the old yacht varnish, which are designed for exterior use, are the best. You need to prepare the floats. With peacock quill, that means very fine glass paper to take off that sheen, make sure you get the sort of stubble off where the hurls come off it. You cut that off with a very, very sharp razor blade. And with the balsa, you probably worth using sanding sealer on it and then sand it after that. Spend the time preparing the float. And then with peacock, I personally give it 2 coats of yacht varnish and then just 1 coat of an oil-based matte paint, like matte black or this underside blues and greys that used to be on the underside of fighter planes and things like that. How much the fish take notice of that colour, I don't know. My floats don't look the prettiest. They don't have inlaid feathers, they don't have fancy whippings. Rarely, You won't see many whippings on, apart from slider eyes, on my Stillwater floats. On Crocodile Avens, there's just about a need for them, but no need for these. Doesn't make the float perform better. It catches anglers though. So preparation is important. Sometimes a little float, I mentioned this, people go on about the lift method. I'm not a fan of it, but if you're going to fish it, you don't need a thing with a great big antenna with bands on it. That's all you need. It's a piece of peacock with a bit of cane glued into the base of it, and you could make these. I've got different ones of these. I don't use them very often, but that's all you need. Whether you agree with me or not, think about your floats, think about whether you could make them or not. It's not that easy. Someone's remarked to get hold of really thick peacock. I had someone who knew someone at a petting zoo, they had peacocks, so maybe if there's one of those close to you and you speak nicely to them, or maybe they'll sell you a few peacock feathers. Peacocks shed them naturally, and the straighter you want the tail feathers, the ones with the eye on it, the straighter they are, the better. You don't want ones that are cracked or bent or broken. I keep them in an old rod tube and keep the ends sealed so there's no clothes moths get in there. Carpet moths, they will eat peacock quills if you don't look after them. Seal them off. I'm not a great fan of Sarcandus reed. It needs a lot of preparation to paint. There's no taper on it really, and I've used it 50 years ago and I've still got one or two floats made of it. I don't use them anymore. And plastic drinking straws are largely a thing of the past now, and I've got a few floats I've made in the past from them. Wouldn't bother too much. So until next time, it's goodbye for now.